Hello and welcome to the show. We go from a Land Rover that climbed the snowy mountain last time to something at the complete other end of the spectrum. This is the Ford Escort, the Mk1 Escort. That is going to be turned into, I suspect, a rather quick hill climb car. There is going to, I imagine, be plenty of power, not a huge amount of weight, but again, much like with the Land Rover, in terms of, well, I fear for the control. Now, the Land Rover turned out to be quite good. I don't know if we're going to be quite as nice in the Escort. We will, of course, start off by making the car all-wheel drive, as we have to with all vehicles in this series. We'll come back to engine. I do expect to have to change it. We are going to be as entertaining as the crash bar at the front is. We need downforce. We need downforce on our Escort, so that is what we are going to go for. I'm not sure. Okay, so we can remove kind of the rear chrome if we want. Are you going to be mud flaps? You are. The magic drag reducing mud flaps. I will take them. And for the bonnet, we could have some rally lights. Oh, magic rally lights as well, because they're £3 lighter, weren't they? Yes. Fantastic. I want rally lights on my cars. Wherever possible, really. Tyres, of course. We are wanting the snow compound tyres. The tyre widths are a slight concern. Only 235s on the front and going to be hopefully slightly, no, not even bigger on the back. 235s all round. That's pretty small. I think it's slightly bigger than the Abarth 131 that went, but that's still not particularly big tyres, and the Abarth was a ludicrously out of control thing. So we are going to potentially have issues. We'll have to wait and see. We will, of course, be going for rally suspension and all of these handling parts that we can get. Now, the standard engine in this car, while a good engine for the time, I don't think going to stand a hope in hell of getting to the top of S1 class, but I will give it a go. We'll have a look, see if we can do anything about it. I'm thinking that's going to be a no. While we are jumping up a lot in PI as we add on these power bits, that's, yeah, it's not going to happen. We could probably just about sneak it into S1 class, but it's never going to really be enough to get it to the top. So we will have a look at our other options. Now, there are two engine swaps for this car. We can go for a Turbo Rally, in fact, not as high PI from the Turbo Rally engine as I was expecting. Or we can go for the 3.2 litre i6. Ooh, we haven't put weight reduction on. We'll probably come back to that later. As much as the Turbo Rally can be useful for building cars in the way that we are building them here, it's not quite going to work out because we can only take restrictors off and that's it for upgrades. So we're going to go for the 3.2 litre. Now, we are probably going to want a turbocharger, in all honesty here. The engine is not the most powerful of engines, this i6. However, it is the best option that I have, really, for the car. If we go weight reduction, what can we get it down to? Oh, we can get it down to £2,000. That's quite nice. We will do that. And then it is just a case of shove power on and hope for the best. Because, yeah, I think this engine gets about 700 horsepower maximum, which, when that's on a car as light as this, I mean, we might not quite get the full 700 horsepower, although it's going to look like it's very close to it. Yeah, that's a lot of power in a car that is this light. Potential to be very fast, of course. That's if you can control it, and that is a very, very, very big if indeed. 697 horsepower so far. We can get it up to 731 with the intercooler. I think we might as well go for these bits and pieces. The weight will come back off again when we put in flywheel and so on. We might as well go through and do all of this as well. This is, yeah, going to be a lunatic car. I wasn't quite expecting it to get the full 700 horsepower. I was thinking we would, I knew we were going to get a fair bit of power. I was expecting to get a little bit less. I was expecting it to get to the top of the PI. Apparently not. We might as well remove the bumper. Saves us a little bit of weight. It is 10 PI down, however the Land Rover went into the top 10, and that was considerably more PI down. So if this car has enough control, might work. Might just work, but that is a very, very big if. It is a very, very big if indeed. So we have come to the Devil's Corners hill climb with our Escort. It's going to get 3 runs up the course in an attempt to go faster than a BMW 507. A 155.9 is the current leader's time. Now, I don't think the Escort will quite have the control to fight with that, although I've been wrong about cars before. This may be fighting with the Land Rover in a weird turn of events. The Series 3 Land Rover, though, that was a 157.8. If this has enough grip, if it isn't a horribly oversteery sideways machine, then I do think we might be going very, very quick. It is just all of that power to, well, I say all that power to weight ratio. It is the all of the power and the lack of weight that is going to give this car crazy acceleration. That's 130 towards the first corner. Couldn't stop it in time, but it was 130 miles an hour to that first corner. It has not got a, it's not got a huge amount of brakes, which is concerning. When you've got this much speed, you kind of want the car to be able to get slowed down pretty well. I think that's one of the areas of the Defender actually was quite surprisingly good. That it would really get slowed down very, very nicely. This Escort, not quite so much, and we don't want to be wasting our time spinning our wheels out of the corners any more than we have to be. It is going to happen with the Ford as we now run down towards this next relatively large braking zone. Bit early on the brakes. I don't think it's going to set a record for speed down there. I don't trust the car enough to dive on the brakes too late. I mean, that was actually pushing my luck a little bit there. Oh, so fast across that jump, 113 miles an hour in the Ford. This might be one of the fastest accelerating cars we have had. Oh, that's so much speed across that. That is the first time I think we've ever had real problems with jumping too far there. That is just crazy acceleration in our Escort. It's actually putting its power down relatively well, and it's not too oversteery and leery. I mean, it is quite oversteery and leery, but it isn't the worst that we have had, not by a long way. Oh, I get things wrong coming off the Icy Straight. We're fighting some of that oversteer. As still 100 miles an hour, completely getting that corner wrong, and we can still get to 100 miles an hour as we leave that jump. It is a little bit of a sighting run, a little bit of a scruffy run to begin with. I mean, hell, the first quarter was a bit of a mess. It was a 2 minutes point 4, I think, on that climb. Yeah, there is definitely plenty of time to be found. It's not quite as crazy as it could have been. That's what I take away from that first run. So, as we head out for this second attempt, composure is going to be the aim of the game, I think, with this car. Not get carried away, not get distracted by the ludicrous speed. Make the most of the speed when you can, but yeah, don't waste time spinning the wheels. Don't waste time bumping into walls and that sort of thing. We've got to try and be as neat and tidy as we can, or with a car that is barely in control. Yeah, certainly not as bad as the Subaru Brat or the Honda S800. There is a little bit more grip in this car, but it's not far off them, so easy does it around some of these turns. This is probably not a favourite place for the Escort. There starts some oversteers. I'm trying to get the front end. We don't really have a huge amount in the way. We don't have a huge amount of grip in this car, front end or rear end grip, which means that I'm struggling a bit more to carry corner speed. In many ways, many ways like the Land Rover in a weird comparison. But yeah, we don't have a huge amount of grip. We've just got to hope that we've got the acceleration to make up for it. Now, I doubt we're going to beat the BMW this way, because the BMW was actually quite good through the corners and still had ludicrous acceleration. We are all sorts of different heading up towards that hairpin. This is the sort of section where we struggle, much like we saw with the Land Rover. The Land Rover could keep up quite well through the first couple of sectors, but once we get into these corners where there's a tight hairpin where we've got to try and put power down, the Escort wants to spin, and then we've got some medium speed corners where we don't have any grip through. Now let's try and get off the Icy Straight better. Oh, that front end just doesn't want to get turned in at all to these corners. Still 110 miles an hour. It's just such brutal acceleration in the Escort as we come into these final corners. Head up towards the line, try and put some of that power down. It's a 59.1. I don't think this Ford likes that final sector, 59.2, sorry. I don't think this Ford likes that final sector whatsoever. If we can get some time through there, then I think it's going to be up there with the Land Rover, but we've got to find some time in that that final bit. Well, we have one more run to try and tame the Escort. It's mostly the final sector, I think, where we are losing our time. This opening bit is a lot of sort of stop-start hairpins, and while this car isn't great under brakes, because we have such crazy power, we can get out of the hairpins. The acceleration zones on these hairpins we're okay with. It's when we get to the really tight hairpins and then the medium speed corners, that's when a world of trouble descends for the poor Escort, because it just can't carry the corner speed necessary through there, and it can't make the most of its acceleration. So we've got to be careful, got to be patient. This is one of those cars that's very easy to overdrive. You're trying to find time, trying to get around these corners quicker, and you end up pushing the car too hard, losing lots of time through wheel spin or sliding around or outbraking yourself and so on. There's a very fine margin between trying to push the car to go faster and pushing it that little bit too much. I've got to try and tread that line very carefully. And it's even more, I mean, it's difficult enough with, you know, any sort of vehicle, but with a car like this, where you are barely in control of it at most points, that's an even tougher line to find. You see, we're relatively up there with the ghost flags at the moment. Here is where we get into all sorts of trouble. I can't really put much power down coming up this hill, and we don't like this next turn either. That sort of drops us back a little bit, and we're not great up through this fast corner here. We have been flat out in a number of cars. We aren't going to be in the Escort as we now head onto the Icy Straight. Not too bad across the bumps, but terrible getting around this corner off of it. Once we do get that power down again, it's incredible acceleration. Through the air we go. That's the first time I've only had big problems across any of the bumps as we head around the penultimate corner, the final turn, trying to cut the corner as much as we can. We're into the 58s. But it is, not going to be enough to get anywhere near that Land Rover. 58.8 is still certainly not too bad of a time up this course for what is a pretty ridiculous car in terms of stats. We are going to go into a 17th place, which is, a relatively respectable. It beats the Delta S4, the Aston Martin, the V600 Vantage, the Ford Transit, the Fiat 131 Abarth, although we do lose out, interestingly, to the Tamo Race Mode, Mercedes 300 SEL, Datsun 510, Toyota AE86. It's a lot in that final sector that it doesn't really like. There's just all sorts of corner types that the Escort can't deal with. Really tight hairpins with an incredibly steep uphill acceleration zone. It wants to spin the wheels. A couple of medium speed bits where it can't really take the speed. Sort of coming off the Icy Straight, we can't really take the speed through there. Getting onto the Icy Straight, we have issues. That's probably costing the car a fair bit of time. Maybe, I was going to say a second, maybe not quite. I mean, that second would put us exactly with the Land Rover. Maybe not quite a second. But yeah, we don't have the front end grip. The Land Rover got away with its huge amount of power and so on because it was surprisingly decent through the corners. This Escort just doesn't quite have the grip of the Land Rover. It's a weird thing to say, but there we go. Still, it is in its own right a exciting car to drive. That much is for sure. That's, though, going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.